Mighty Tarnished, welcome back to the Mountain Run. This is a challenge run where I'm beating Elden Ring as the Mountain from Game of Thrones, using no heal flasks, spells, or incantations, just a basic Greatsword. In the last episode, the Mountain defeated the Knight's Cavalry, earning their armor, and then took on the Fire Giant. After a decisive victory, we lit the forge to burn down the Erd Tree and found ourselves transported to Farum Azula. We're here to covet destined death so that we can raise our sword and defeat the very gods. Lord Braggart would be proud. With our build having been finalized, it's just a gauntlet of bosses between the mountain and victory. We already took out Morgott and Fire Giant, meaning the duo and Maliketh are next. On the way to Maliketh, an ancient dragon swept in. While it's certainly an optional fight, it felt right at home to give us one more dragon fight for the road. Ancient dragons are pretty tough. I sometimes struggle to avoid a few of their lightning attacks. Let's see how the mountain performs. With the dragon out of the way, it's time for the duo. This is the fight I've been worried about the most on this run. This fight is kind of a choose-your-own difficulty. If you use sleep, it's easy. If you use summons, it's medium. Soloing the duo with nothing but a greatsword and no heals is approaching extreme difficulty. In order to win, I came up with a strategy. I used Opaline hard tier and a defensive talisman so that I could tank at least 1 to 2 hits. I also have Stonebarb tier for easier poise breaks. The plan is to trade into Noble immediately to stun and eliminate him. If done correctly, I would lose some HP, but at least survive, and I could turn the fight into a 1v1 against Apostle. After this point, I'd have to do everything in my power to keep killing or stunning the 1v1, so I'm never again in a 2v1. Holy crap, I literally survived on the tiniest remaining health after getting blendered by Noble in the corner. What a tough fight, but it's out of the way. The thing is, I don't mind duo fights. Historically in Dark Souls 1, the Ornstein and Smough fight was iconic. However, what made that fight fair, unless you ran into some jank or a bug, was that they usually attacked one at a time. In the Godskin Duo fight, you often run into situations where you're frame trapped. What I mean is, they perfectly stagger their attacks such that there's no possible way to dodge them. This can even happen when doing parries and ripostes. You can riposte one while a fireball is on its way and it hits you while you're recovering from the animation. It is possible to melee no-hit them, but it requires very precise positioning and deep knowledge of how to avoid getting frame trapped. It ends up being more of a marathon rather than an enjoyable fight. What's weird is that it feels like the only duo fight in Elden Ring like this. Most of the time, duos or groups of enemies become passive while one attacks, allowing you to handle the situation. There's just something about the Godskin Duo that's a complete gank blender, and it's notoriously hard to handle without summons or sleep. But enough of the duo, it's time for my favorite fight in base Elden Ring. Perhaps one of the fairest fights in the coolest arenas against an awesome opponent, Maliketh. I'll let this one play out.
is unbound. And the lands between are shrouded by death's dark fate. But the flames will also burn the impenetrable thorns. Farewell it is then.
I absolutely love that fight. It has a perfect rhythm, and the way Maliketh uses the pillars is really cool. I wish more boss arenas had a mechanic like that. On top of it all, the mountain won pretty decisively, having been hit only twice. With Farum Azula conquered, the gauntlet is narrowing in on the final bosses of the Ashen Capital, and with the power of Destined Death, we're ready to slay a god. On our way to do so, a pathetic guy that labels himself as all-knowing got in the way.
I knew you'd come to stand before the Elden Ring, to become Elden Lord. What a sad state of affairs. I commend your spirit, but alas, none shall take the throne. Queen Maliketh's high hope, that will continue unto eternity. In my bones, a tarnished cannot become a lord.
But just like Jon Snow, he knows nothing. With that poser out of the way, just 2 fights remain, and the next is sure to be an iconic clash. 2 mighty warriors trading swings with iron and might. Hoarah is such a great fight. It's definitely up there for me with Morgott and Maliketh. The mountain took only one hit, and honestly, looking at the footage, I thought that dodge was clean. But no matter, it takes more than one hit to take the mountain down. Before we head into the final fight, let's level up and check in on stats. I ended this run at level 137. This is exactly in the middle of the typical endgame range of 125 to 150, and where I predicted I'd end up. The amazing thing is I skipped a lot of bosses and content, including the other shard bearers. It goes to show that with some efficiency and gold foul feet, it's quite easy to reach sufficient levels for endgame and even DLC content. But enough chit chat. It's time for the final showdown, and it's a good one. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. I managed to get all the way from Radagon to Elden Star's hitless. This was so close to being a hitless finale, but it just wasn't in the cosmos for the mountain. The mountain that now sits upon the throne. Not a lord, not a politician, but the might of a knight, and a trail of blood and iron. And so it is written in the books. My first ever challenge run completed. Not a single heal, spell, or incantation was ever used to reach the throne. The journey was rewarding and full of close, tense moments. I enjoyed every last second of it and am already planning and looking forward to my next set of challenges. I want to give a special shout out to two close friends, Chalk and DWRG, that supported me through this journey. I couldn't have found the inspiration and strength without you guys, and I will up the stakes to greater heights for the honor and glory of your names. Thank you for being a part of the journey. If you have any suggestions or requests, please leave a comment and consider subscribing for future runs like this one. Stay mighty, Tarnished.